Welcome to another video by Montage Microchurch Network. As you listen, prepare your hearts and minds to engage with your spiritual families as you gather together. To learn more, visit montagemicro.church.
We find ourselves in Acts 19:21, all the way through chapter 20, verse 1, reading about this mob riot in Ephesus. The riot at Ephesus is all about Paul messing with people's idolatry. And actually, this has been a theme all in the book of Acts. We're going to see idolatry in the man-made carved images here at Ephesus, as well as the man-made created money that we have today. In fact, I would say that money is the number one idol in our culture. And often if someone messes with our money, we riot in our own way. The silversmiths here at Ephesus had been organized into a trade union, and they found that they were being hit hard in the most sensitive part of the human anatomy, the pocketbook. These silversmiths, who made little silver souvenirs of the goddess Artemis, found their business dropping off because so many people were becoming Christians that nobody wanted their shrines anymore. And if we're honest with ourselves as Christians, isn't this what we want? We want to see Jesus capture so many hearts that bars lose revenue, that pornography websites can't stay open, that abortion clinics have no customers, that the 49ers football team lose all their fans. Not because Christians are picketing with angry signs and yelling at the sinners that use those services, but because so many people start to love and follow Jesus that there just isn't the demand anymore. Disciples making disciples, making disciples, making disciples. Christians experiencing just how amazing Jesus is, that they have to share no matter what. There's so many people having their hearts and motivations changed that they just don't want that stuff anymore compared to Jesus. Now pray for this. I pray that we are like Paul's companions here from Acts 19, but here in the Flathead, and that we make such a difference in people's lives that it reverberates through even the businesses around us. So in Acts 19, it's Demetrius, the president of the Silversmiths Union, who really cared nothing for the real welfare of the many people who had become Christians that had found freedom and peace and joy in Christ. He saw only the red ink in the profit and loss columns of his books, and he was very concerned about that. There is money in idolatry. There was in the first century in Ephesus, and there is in the 21st century in the USA. I mean, today, the porn industry generates more income than the combined revenues of ABC, NBC, and CBS, and more than the combined revenues of the NFL, NBA, and MLB. In the USA, the porn industry generates between $15 billion to $97 billion a year. Another $300+ billion goes to alcoholic drinks in the US. Abortion in the US generates over $2 billion annually. Gambling generates over $66 billion. There is money in idolatry. And that is the main drive behind Demetrius and the silversmiths here in Acts 19. And truthfully, it's the main drive behind the idolatry of today as well. So let's jump into Acts 19 together so we can be on the same page. It says this: Afterward, Paul felt compelled by the Spirit to go over to Macedonia and Achaia before going to Jerusalem. And after that, he said, I must go on to Rome. He sent his two assistants, Timothy and Erastus, ahead to Macedonia, while he stayed a while longer in the province of Asia. About that time, serious trouble developed in Ephesus concerning the way. It began with Demetrius, a silversmith who had a large business manufacturing silver shrines of the Greek goddess Artemis. He kept many craftsmen busy. He called them together, along with others employed in similar trades, and addressed them as follows. Gentlemen, you know that our wealth comes from this business. But as you have seen and heard, this man Paul has persuaded many people that handmade gods aren't really gods at all. And he's done this not only here in Ephesus, but throughout the entire province. Of course, I'm not just talking about the loss of public respect for our business. I'm also concerned that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will lose its influence, and that Artemis, this magnificent goddess worshipped throughout the province of Asia and all around the world, will be robbed of her great prestige. At this, their anger boiled, and they began shouting, Great is Artemis of the Ephesians! Soon, the whole city was filled with confusion. Everyone rushed to the amphitheater, dragging along Gaius and Aristachus, who were Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia. Paul wanted to go in too, but the believers wouldn't let him. Some of the officials of the province, and they were friends of Paul, also sent a message to him, begging him to not risk his life by entering the amphitheater. Inside, the people were all shouting, some one thing, some another. Everyone was in confusion. In fact, most of them didn't even know why they were there. The Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander forward and told him to explain the situation. He motioned for silence and tried to speak, but when the crowd realized he was a Jew, they started shouting again and kept it up for about 2 hours. "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians! Great is Artemis of the Ephesians!" At last, the mayor was able to quiet them down enough to speak. "Citizens of Ephesus," he said, "everyone knows that Ephesus is the official guardian of the temple of the great Artemis, whose image fell down to us from heaven. Since this is an undeniable fact, you should stay calm and not do anything rash. You have brought these men here, but they have stolen nothing from the temple and have not spoken against our goddess. If Demetrius and the craftsmen have a case against them, the courts are in session and the officials can hear the case at once. Let them make formal charges. And if there are complaints about other matters, they can be settled in a legal assembly. I'm afraid if we are in danger of being charged with rioting by the Roman government, since there's no cause for all this commotion. And if Rome demands an explanation, we won't know what to say." Then he dismissed them and they dispersed. Now here's a profound revelation of mob psychology in the accounts of Dr. Luke gives us. After all, you can't arouse a mob to defend your interests if all you can say is that you just haven't been making as much money as you used to. I mean, that might fire you up, but really doesn't interest others that much. They don't care whether you made money or not. The lack of revenue was what stirred up these silversmiths. But since no one will defend you on your personal poor year of sales, Demetrius has to add another charge, emotionally loaded, deliberately introduced in order to arouse the people. The charge was that the religion of the city was threatened, that Artemis, the goddess the city worshipped, was insulted and was in danger of losing her stature in the eyes of the world. Artemis was the goddess enshrined in the great temple outside of Ephesus, which was known as one of the 7 great wonders of the world. According to some of the copies that have been excavated, she was this figure of a many-breasted woman enshrined as a goddess representing Mother. So in attacking Artemis, they're attacking Mother. And when you're attacking Mother and you're attacking religion, you're really striking to the heart of deeply involved emotional issues. It is a recipe for emotional anger and leads to this riot. And these silversmiths knew it. I find it interesting that apparently Paul and his buddies have stolen nothing from the temple and have not spoken against our goddess. These early Christians didn't go around faulting paganism. They simply introduced a positive new faith of such tremendous power and such fantastic reality that when anyone experienced it, the old way of life was just wiped out. The Christians simply declared how good Jesus is and how available he is. And men and women who are sunken in darkness and superstition, and they were gripped by fear and idolatry, they found Jesus so loving, so genuine, so joyful, that after their empty paganism simply was nothing compared to their relationship with Jesus. It never seemed to have dawned on Demetrius that this was what happened and that therefore they really couldn't have any argument against it. If the Christians had attacked the pagan religion, then they maybe could have constructed a defense, but apparently they didn't say anything about it. They just simply shared Jesus and people flocked to him. And I would encourage us, make sure we point people towards Jesus more than we point them away from other things. And we can get bogged down in arguments about intelligent design, which I love, by the way, about transgender issues or abortion. I mean, all really important topics that can and should be addressed in time, but more than speaking against things, I encourage us all to speak for how amazing Jesus is, how we can trust that Jesus will work in people's hearts once they know how good he really is. Well, Demetrius did enough to rile up the crowd. Here's a crowd excited by a false emotional issue, which surged together into the theater. And if you visit the site of Ephesus today, you find that this theater has been excavated. It's really the only sizable part of the city which still stands. It was a huge theater, able to seat about 20,000 people. So it was a big crowd. I mean, way bigger than the number of fans the 49ers have. These people were very responsive to this appeal. Although there are a lot of them who didn't even know what was going on. They were just there to see what all the commotion was about. Paul wanted to go in and speak to him, and man, what an insight into the fearless bravery of this man of God, who didn't hesitate a moment to take on a crowd like this. But his friends recognized that the mood of the crowd was ugly. Even the officials of the province, responsible to the Romans, and they're friends of Paul, they were concerned, and they sent word to him, don't go in the theater. Their mob's tactics, shouting over and over, right? Great is Artemis of the Ephesians, for 2 hours straight. You know, and I kind of find this to be a common tactic of people who are losing an argument. Just get loud and don't let the other side get in a word. Their position is a losing one. I mean, I really do agree with Paul that handmade gods aren't really gods at all. If a person can make a god, doesn't that mean that their god isn't really a god at all? Makes sense to me. Well, eventually, the mayor's able to settle down the crowd and restore law and order. And if these Christians really had broken any laws, there were legal actions that could have been taken. And if Artemis is really a true god, they shouldn't be threatened by people talking about Jesus. And vice versa, Christians. The more I learn about other religions, the more convinced I become of the truth of Jesus. Jesus is real. And because of that, we can welcome hard questions and people searching for truth. I think this is what Jesus means in Matthew 7:7 when he says, keep on asking and you will receive what you're asking for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, the door will be open. If someone is genuinely seeking truth, I believe they will find Jesus, because all other gods are just man-made idols that aren't gods at all. And the core fact is why Christianity was swelling in Ephesus. Because Jesus is better than any man-made idol. Jesus is better than money. Jesus is better than sex. Jesus is better than a good life. Jesus is better than comfort. Jesus is better than morality. Jesus is better than a Super Bowl win. Jesus is better than any earthly relationship. Jesus is better than anything this world offers. Jesus is better. And when we really know that in the depth of our core, when we live out that in our everyday lives, we will see people around us want what we have found. We will see others around us start to follow Jesus, and we can change the world one person at a time when we love Jesus with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, with all of our strength, because he is better.
Thank you for watching. If you would like more content, to connect with us, or to explore more of who we are as a network, visit montagemicro.church.